Hello, my name is AJ Kittle, and today we're going to be discussing Somali culture in preparation for your move to Somalia. This should help you in both your personal and professional life once you move. Let's start by discussing the geography of Somalia. It's located on the Horn of Africa, which is the eastern side of Africa. Mogadishu, the capital, lies just north of the equator, but is in the south side of Somalia. Because Somalia is around the equator, it creates hot and arid regions and biomes like the savanna and desert. In the north we have mountains, and in the south we have some lowlands. As well, Somalia has an expansive coastline along the Indian Ocean. The official language of Somalia is Somali, with a close second being Arabic. Arabic is due to the close ties to Islam. Luckily for you, the north has some English speakers, and in the south you can see some Italian and Swahili speakers. Somali only became a written language in 1973, despite the long history of Somalia. On the right you can see Ilhan Omar, who is an American congresswoman who was born in the capital of Somalia. The coastline of Somalia was settled by about 100 AD. Due to Somalia's closeness to the Middle East, they were an early convert to Islam. In 1414, they were attacked by Ethiopia, and in 1530, they retaliated against Ethiopia with an invasion of their own. In 1543, Portugal aligned with Ethiopia, which ended the Somali invasion. Between 1728 and the 1850s, the Ottomans ruled over the regions locally. However, these governors weren't as oppressive as some of the later forces that we see in Somalia. By 1875, colonialism is in full swing from Europe. The British decided to colonize the north, and Italy colonized the south. This is why we have those different language speakers in those two regions. Between 1899 and 1920, Muhammad Abdil Hassan led the resistance against the British. This was one of the longest and strongest colonial resistances of all time, and it took the new technology of airplanes with bombing capabilities to destroy the resistance. Since this was right after World War I, Somalia didn't have the capabilities to defend against aerial bombardment. Many Americans know Somalia from the movie Black Hawk Down. This took place during the Somali Civil War in 1993. However, it's an American-made movie, so the perspective shown through this movie may not be reflective of the objective events. Somalia is home for about 19 million people, with an annual GDP of about $12 billion. This is approximately 637 US dollars per person per year. The life expectancy is just 59 years old, which is lower than the American retirement age. And as far as religion goes, they are 99% Muslim, with 98% being Sunni Muslim, 1% being Shia, and less than 1% being Islamic schismatics. Those are just Muslims who don't fit into the categories of Sunni or Shia. It's important to note the ethnic groups and clans of Somalia. These clans are based on paternal lineage, so on the father side, and these can be the baseline for connections and social status. The major clans are Duran, Hawaii, Dir, and Rahawan, and there are many sub-clans within these clans. As you can see based off this map, these clans are not bound to the national borders, spilling into Kenya, Ethiopia, and Djibouti. And there are many minority clans as well, such as the Bantu, Benadiri, Asharaf, and the Bravanese. Intermarriage with a minority clan is prohibited. There are also some jobs in Somalia that are excluded from the rest of society. Let's quickly go through some of the surface culture of Somalia, which are just portions of culture that you can observe with your senses. Somalis stand to greet those that they respect. Men will shake hands, while women will hug or kiss each other on the cheek for informal meetups. People will refer to each other by just the first name, and respected adults might be referred to by aunt or uncle despite not being related. Northern Somalis have a diet that includes a little bit more meat, milk, and rice due to the historic nomadic lifestyles. Meanwhile, in southern Somalia, they have more agriculture and trading, which brings in green veggies, corn, and beans to their diets. Chinese tea is popular in Somalia due to trading along the Indian Ocean, and Somalia has a unique coffee drink that's derived specifically from coffee bean coverings. As far as attire goes, the traditional clothing includes makawis. These are tube-like garments that can be fastened around the waist. Men might also wear turbans or kufiyads on their heads. Women will typically wear a garbasar, which is a full-body shawl, and women may or may not cover their heads in accordance with their religious beliefs. Women might have henna on their hands, arms, feet, or neck for special events. These are like temporary tattoos. And Somalis might wear Western clothes like jeans and a t-shirt. In the top right picture, 3 out of the 4 shirts look like a more Western style of shirt. Moving on to the deep culture of Somalia, starting with communication and gestures. You generally shouldn't swear in Somalia as it's considered dishonorable and inappropriate. Although they're a sailor's nation, you should probably keep your sailor's mouth shut. Men will speak directly and right to the point, often speaking loudly. You'll say blessings instead of thank you, and men will use animated, large gestures while speaking. Always use the right hand to gesture, as the left hand is seen as the hygiene hand and is unclean. Never beckon with one finger, and never show the bottom of your feet to others, as it's extremely insulting. On to personal space. It's very common to be close or touching if you're familiar or the same gender as someone in Somalia. Even hugging and physical contact is acceptable. However, it's inappropriate for the opposite gender to be touching in this way. You should keep a larger distance for people of different status and for the opposite gender, and we're talking at least 1 meter away from anyone you don't know well. Somali men might walk holding hands together to show their friendship. However, Westerners seen holding hands might be seen as homosexual, which is illegal in Somalia. Therefore, it's not recommended that you hold hands with the same sex while in public in Somalia. Let's move on to age and elders. Somalia is an extremely young country, with 55% of Somalis being under the age of 15 years old. Only 3% are above the age of 65. There is a deep respect for elders in Somalia, but these elders are more often designated by their status and authority level rather than age itself. So you might have a high status 40-year-old that's an elder before a 60-year-old person. Elders can also be used to resolve issues if a government's ineffective within the region. It's said that decisions made by elders under a tree can carry the full strength of the law, and this is also good because it results in less violent outcomes. Diaspora Somalis might rely on elders for advice and help in times of need. In Somalia, death is seen as a completion of the life cycle. The spirit immediately travels to the afterworld. It's accepted and not really worried about. Most deaths will occur in homes and not hospitals. According to my research, all death records show that the cause of death is by God's will. A deceased person's legs and arms are straightened and tied with white cloth as shown in the top right corner, and the body must be washed by members of the same sex. Even medical examiners and police are asked to respect the same-sex rule when handling a dead body. The deceased are buried without caskets, and a prayer called janaso is performed. When it comes to resources, Somalis are a deeply generous people. They can show this generosity towards their family, their clan, their community, and the public at large. It's seen as honorable to be generous towards one another. Islamic mosques will organize charity for individuals that are in need. Somalia has a very present-thinking orientation. They're focused more on what the community needs right now, rather than what themselves might need later. If you look at the circle test on top for Kuwait, you can see a very small circle on the left, a large circle in the middle, and a small circle on the right. These are the past, present, and future focuses on the Kuwait society. This very closely resembles how Somalia views time too. Much of their focus is on the present, and less so on the past and then the future. And this, of course, is reflected by their beliefs on death and not worrying about it. Because of this present thinking, Somalis are quick to form friendships and engage in open dialogue with one another. Gender norms in Somalia are heavily enforced. There's separation of duties. Men tend to make decisions and control the finances, while women handle domestic activities like cooking, cleaning, and childcare. More recently, there's been a shift in some of these norms. Women will step up and help their male counterpart if they fall short in any way. Women have also increased their head of household rate to about 1 in 3. And nearly 1 in 10 Somali women of working age were employed as of the year 2020. The central tenet in Somalia is honor. One's behavior drives your honor, which is also called sharaf. Your honor impacts your family, your clan, and your community, with the exception being within large cities. And it's also impacted by your demeanor, how you treat others, your honesty, and your modesty, which is also called sisud. However, modesty mostly applies to women in a family, with promiscuity being seen as shameful. One can preserve their honor by dressing correctly, using polite language, being generous, and respecting one's elders. The expectation is much higher for women than men, and women speaking loudly or laughing in public can be seen as dishonorable. Another concept core to Somali culture is their resistance to imperialism. Somalis have an overarching national sentiment that they feel. Because of historic colonial occupations, Somalis will be distrustful of outside forces. Even clans that are fighting with one another will unite to repel any outside forces that threaten Somalia. And I think this Somali proverb sums it up very well. Me and my nation against the world, me and my clan against my nation, me and my family against the clan, me and my brother against the family, me against my brother. This shows that while there are plenty of disagreements and disputes within Somali culture, they will always unite to fight the bigger issue at hand. And this is also a good reflection of collectivist culture, which we'll touch on later. Let's quickly analyze Somali culture compared to the United States using Hofstede's cultural dimensions. These are power distance, individualism, masculinity, uncertainty avoidance, long-term orientation, and indulgence. Starting with power distance, Somalia is about 30 points higher than the United States on this scale. This means that a higher ranked person with higher status will automatically receive respect and have more authority. The United States is more moderate on the power distance scale. This means that there's still respect for authority figures, yet subordinates are treated with dignity. As well, feedback is likely to be more accepted to management in the United States. Somalia is a significantly collective country, while the United States is extremely individualist. This means that Somalis are more likely to serve the group's interests. This is reflected in that tenet of generosity that we talked about earlier. This collectivism can also make it difficult for outsiders to be truly welcomed into Somali society. And it's important to note that this is the largest gap between our two cultures. Moving on to masculinity versus femininity, where the US and Somalia pretty much tie. Both are moderate with a slight lean towards masculinity. This means that there's a balance between established gender roles and focus on relationships. When it comes to uncertainty avoidance, Somalia is a little bit higher on this scale. However, both countries are moderate in this dimension. This means that people are willing to take risks to advance their business and society at large, but they won't always seek out conflict or competition with someone else. For the concept of time, Somalia has an extremely short-term orientation, while the United States is significantly oriented in the short term, but not as much. This means both countries have a higher concern for the present moment and short-term successes. There's less emphasis on shame and perseverance. People in short-term oriented countries tend to have a lower savings rate than those in long-term oriented countries. Lastly, let's talk about indulgence versus restraint. Somalia exercises significant restraint in their culture. This means they're more likely to conform to societal norms instead of their own personal desires. This also means that they might perceive experiences as something happening to them, aka external locus of control. Meanwhile, the United States is fairly indulgent. We enjoy our sweet treats. Indulgent countries have a higher emphasis on free speech and happiness. And this is why it matters. Understanding these gaps allow us to empathize with the decisions and perspectives of other cultures. Being aware of these gaps help us to avoid cultural blunders. And when it comes to persuading or influencing business partners or friends, these factors can help you figure out an angle of approach that works for them. And it's also important to note that these are the average sentiments within a culture. Individuals may vary dramatically from these sets of average values. No culture is a monolith, and there is variation in every single person. These are my 5 recommendations before you move. Number 1. Focus on the collective. Start practicing putting others first instead of oneself. This JFK quote sums it up pretty well. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. This will help you assimilate into Somali culture. Number 2. Develop mindfulness of your feet. Exposing the soles of your feet in Somalia is insulting. So practice by sitting with your feet remaining flat on the floor, and try to avoid kicking your legs up on the desk at work. It's better to be a little uncomfortable than to damage a relationship with someone in Somalia. Number 3. Avoid insulting Somalia and the religion of Islam. Don't use terms like African or Somalian to refer to people. Call them Somalis. That's the proper term. Avoid using past colonial names to refer to different regions of Somalia. This might invoke negative feelings towards you as an outsider. Somalia is 99% Muslim, and the Golden Rule dictates that you wouldn't want someone to insult your religion, so don't insult theirs. And never ever imply that Somalia is impoverished or uncivilized. Number 4 is in regards to your business dealings. Be on time, but be ready for your superiors to run late. Negotiations are common in Somalia, so be ready to offer a higher starting price than what you expect and work your way down to a fair price for all parties. When addressing a sensitive topic at work, make sure that you meet privately and discreetly so you don't embarrass that person. And for any business proposals, make sure you explain how it benefits Somalia as a whole. This reflects back on that collectivist principle. And lastly, number 5, be generous. Generosity is a core principle of Somalia. It's rooted in their nomadic history of helping people along their travels. This reflects back on that short-term orientation where you shouldn't be worried about your own future, but worry about helping someone who needs it right now. And being generous brings honor, which is another core value of Somalia. Honor can be slow to build and very quick to damage. Being generous is a common sense way to build up that reputation. Thank you so much for watching, and if you have any questions, please comment them below. Thanks.